Hello and welcome to a new Google Sheets tutorial in Practical Sheets. Today we're going to start a new project and it's a workout logger or a workout journal. Let's say it is an unusual project to be doing in Google Sheets. There are a lot of apps that do this and there are a lot of ways to monitor our workouts, but I think there is an interesting project to explore Google Sheets possibilities outside the usual projects that we normally associate Excel and Google Sheets with. So let's begin. There are a lot of ways to do this and they vary in the level of complexity. We're going to start with the easiest one, and then in other videos we can explore how to do it, for example, with a user form or with app sheets, with Google Apps Script and more. For this first video, we're just going to set up the database and do a simple dashboard so that we can track our workouts very easily. So here we're going to name this data and set up our headers. You can start with an exercise, the date on which we're going to do it or that we did it, because there are two ways of doing this. We can log our exercises as we do it, or we can plan our exercises and then do them over this planner, depending on your workout style. We could log the day before or the week before the exercise we're going to do next week, and then just look at this and do them. Or as we do the exercises, we can log what we are doing in the moment. We can then put the strength or the resistance here, or the weight, depending on how you're doing it. Then we can have the series. Normally we do between 3 and 5 series, so depends on your case. We will put some comments here, and that's it. Maybe we could include the time between series or other fields that may be of use to you. Next, we're going to validate each one of these fields. So let's begin backwards. We're going to start from the comments. Actually, the comments don't need any validation. The series are always going to be the number of repetitions we're going to do. So it has to be a number greater than 0, and it could be maybe lower than 100. Maybe we're never going to do more than 100. So we go to data validation. Say we're going to have a number between 1 and 100. Reject and save. Weight, this could change because you could put it in pounds, in kilos. Now a lot of people work out with resistance bands, so I'm going to leave it free. On date, we're going to validate it with a date validation. Here we select date, and it's enough that it's a valid date. We reject, if not, and save. And finally, we're going to have a drop-down list of the exercises. There are two ways of doing this. We're going to add a new sheet, call it list. The first way is to have a predefined list of exercises. So we have here exercise, and then we have, let's paste some exercise. Whatever they may be. And then here we could go to data validation, select our list. We're going to leave this open to any last row because in some cases we may have a lot of exercises. We reject it, and that's it. We have here all the exercises, and if I want to include a new exercise, I need to go first to this list and then include it here, and then I get selected. This is the first way. The second way, I think I prefer it that way, but it depends on your specific case, is that we are not going to have a predefined list of exercises. Actually, we're going to be building the exercises as we do them. What do I mean by that? For example, let's drag down this data validation. I'm going to select show warning instead of reject input, save it, and I'm going to write down any exercise. Let's say I'm going to start with squats. Right now, as I told them not to reject the input, then it shows me this warning. And in the next one, still it is open without anything. So if I put push-ups, again it shows me the warning. What I can do is in this list, I could select with an array. I could select this list from A2 up to A, close the array, and I will have this list that is going to start building as I write. What this does is that in the next drop down, when I select, I already have the ones that I've written before. I can select the squat, but in the next one I could add a new one, lunges. And as it goes to this list, then in the next one I have squat, push-ups, and the one I wrote the day before, lunges. And if neither one of these is, so I have pull-ups. In the next one, I'm going to have the 4 ones I've written before. So it is a nice way to avoid doing this intermediate step of having to write the exercise down first and then select it. I think any one of those two ways may work. It depends on your case. The problem with this is that if I select lunges again, then this list is going to start to fill out with duplicates. So I'm going to just add a unique here to eliminate the duplicates. That's it. And this won't change at all. So I have my validations. I'm going to delete. I'm going to select all the data validations, select all my rows with Ctrl-Shift or Command-Shift down, and then duplicate the validations in all the rows with Ctrl-D or Command-D. That's it. I think I'm ready for the next step. Actually, before going to the dashboard, I can do a couple of other things. I'm going to copy from another file some exercises. Once we have done this for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, we're going to have a lot of rows. So this may prove a challenge. For example, when I want to add new rows or new exercises. There are a lot of ways to do this, and hopefully in further videos we're going to include forms or different and easier and more convenient ways to include the data. But for now, let's see how we can include new data in a faster way. So if I want to include new data, I have two options. The first one is to go down to the last row and start choosing my exercise, my date, and my series. So the first problem is that here I cannot see what is my first series, where is the strength, where is the comments, or anything. So I'm going to drag down this thick line down to the first row, so I can freeze this first row and easily always know the column to what it refers to. The second one is a keyboard shortcut that is Ctrl or Command down that moves me to the last row, and I can easily start including new data. But if you have, for example, students, or you're not too keen on doing keyboard shortcuts, we could do a link or a kind of button to go down easily. For this, we're going to go to the last row, get the link to this cell. Let's copy it here in any part of our spreadsheet. So what you see here is that I have the link of the file and the ID of the sheet and the range that I want. Given that we are referring to the same spreadsheet, we can delete all this before the hash key and it still will work. Okay? So now what I want is not to go to cell A179, but to go always to the last cell. For doing this, we're going to be assisted by the function count A, which will count the rows in the column A. So right now we have 178. I need 179, so I'm going to add 1. And lastly, we're going to replace, to have this as a text, delete this 179 and add it with ampersand and this formula. So we're going to copy this formula here and replace it. So if I include new exercises, you can see that the number here is adding up and it matches with the first available new row. Lastly, I'm going to use this function hyperlink, where I'll give it the URL and then a text to go to the URL. So because this URL doesn't look pretty, doesn't look good, so we're going to have this hyperlink and a text that says go to the last row. And again, I'm going to copy this and place it here by the cell with the reference I had before. We can block this reference and then cut this and put it in the header, so that when I start or when I open my file, I just click this and then the link and go to the last available row. That's one way to do it. Another way is to do a very easy macro. Going to go to Tools, Macro, and record a macro that goes to the last row. We're going to make sure we use absolute references. We're going to stand on our cell A1, then with Control down, we're going to go to the last row. If I, again, go with down, it's going to damage what I'm trying to do here. So I'm just going to give it save, name this go to last row, give it a number 1 and save. We're going to try it out. We're going to stand in any cell, go to Tools, Macros, and play go to last row. It should normally ask you the first time for permissions. I already did some tests, so it doesn't ask me. But see that we go to the last row, and if I include new exercises, and again go to any row, Tools, Macros, go to last row, or I could press in my keyboard Ctrl-Alt-Shift-1, and it again goes to the last row. So it's not the same as this link that went to the first available row. I have to go one down manually, but it's an improvement. Another thing we could do is to, maybe you prefer to add your exercises at the beginning. So we could do, again, a small macro that inserts a row at the beginning. It is important that we insert the row from here. It is different to insert a row above this one than a row below this first one. You can see when I insert a row above this one, it includes in the new row the data validation of the row number 4. But if I do it the other way, if I include a row below this one, it will include the data validations which are none to the new row. So I wanted to include the data validations that I already had set up. I could do this directly in the Google Apps script with code, but I want to leave it as easier as we can do it for the time being. Then we're going to get more complex. Macros, record macro. Again, we'll leave it absolute. We're going to stand in row number 2 and say insert one above, and that's it. I don't need any more actions. We're going to save and call this insert row above. Give it a number 2 and save. I'm going to delete this and try it out. Okay, so I've seen 3 ways to make it easier to include new data. And I think that's it for the basic data. Again, in further videos, we can see how we can make this data insertion even easier. But for now, we're going to leave it like that, and we're going to add a new sheet where we're going to do our dashboard. The reason for this dashboard is that looking at here, it's not as comfortable or as easy as it may look. But with this, if you are okay with this and you just scroll down and look at the exercises and do them and change it, you don't need the dashboard. But I think it's an easier way to see the information. So here we're going to call this last exercise routine. We could do this with query, and probably it's easier, but I'll leave it with filter because first it works in Excel, so you can replicate this in Excel. And secondly, query is a more complex function. It's not so easy to understand in the first run. So I'm going to go with our filter, and the first argument is our data. We're going to select all the series and all the exercises, and that's it. And the second one is going to be our date, because we're going to filter by our date. Our date is going to be equal to the last date we have. One way would be doing it with today, but it's not very efficient because we won't always have our routine done today. Let's leave it like that at the beginning. We're going to have an error because there is no routine done today. So another thing we could do is to look for the last date I have here in my data. This we can do it very easily with the function max. Just select max from all this data. That's it, and you can replace the max here. And now we have it. We have the latest date we can find, and we bring everything. The exercise, the date, the strength, and the repetitions. The thing that query has that the filter doesn't is that it brings us the headers. So here we have to manually copy and paste the headers. This is a bit old, so if I include a new workout, let's say on October of 2020, sorry, this is not the last date, it has to be 2021. Let's say January of 21, and then I look at this. The function filter brings me the last date he finds. One other thing I can do is have a date picker to choose. Maybe I see, I want to see what I did on June 30th. What was my routine like? Maybe I don't want the last date, but the date before that. So it would be good to select a specific date. So we're going to have a date picker here, but I cannot select any date I want. It should be a date where I did exercises. So we're going to do a data validation. This from a range, and my range should be this one, B2 to B. You can see that we could have sorted it first, so we can have the dates in order, but we can leave this for later. And then what I'm going to do is, once I select it, I'm going to have another filter function very similar to this one, but instead of being max, it will be this reference. So I'm going to copy and paste it here, and then replace this max function with this reference. And that's it. Now what I need to do is to mix up these two. I'm going to say that if we have data here, let's use that, but if not, if this is empty, then we're going to use this other filter function. So we can say if b3 equals to nothing, then we're going to include the filter function above. And if not, if it has data, then we're going to include this one I just did. Let's close it and let's copy this filter one from before and copy it here. We can erase this and bring this up. And if we erase the data, it automatically brings the last date. But if we select a specific date, it will bring the data or the exercises from this specific date. Okay? So this looks good. The last thing we can do is to have here another picker, but for exercise. Maybe I want to see today is going to be push day and I want to see my push-ups, how I've been doing historically with my push-ups. We can call this history, exercise history or something like that. Here we can select the exercise, again with a picker. We're going to do the same thing we did here, data validation, this from a range. We can select it from our list. We can reject input this time. And then we're going to do the same thing we did here, just a filter. This whole data. And filtering this time by exercise. That the exercise equals the one I have here. If it's empty, then it would bring nothing, but if I select, for example, push-ups, then it will bring all the history of the push-ups. I'm going to insert a row. Again, bring this manually, these headers. And the last thing we could do is maybe sort it in a descending way, so we can see the most recent date at the beginning. But it depends on how you want to visualize it. So outside from this filter function, we can have a sort function. And we're going to sort all these filters, but by the second column. And as I want it in a descending way, I will set this as false, the third argument as false. And then I can see the last one I have, and I can see nicely how my evolution has panned out. And then I could do a graph if I want or something. But for now, I think we can leave it like this, and it looks really good. If I don't want to see all the push-ups I've done, then maybe I have 100 days of push-ups, then I could include this in a sort n function. That the sort n function is the same as sort, but at the beginning I could include two new arguments. That the first one is how many rows I want to display. It's like the limit command in query. And then I will leave this as 0. So here, after the filter, I'm going to pass, let's say I want no more than 15 rows, and then 0, and that's it. And so it limits our data to 15 or to 10 or to 5 or whatever you want. So that's it. I have validated my data, included some easy ways to go to the last row or to the first row, or to include new data in the first row, and then I've done a dashboard where I can see easily the last exercise I did or the last exercise I had planned, and an exercise history, so I can go to any one of my exercises and see how has it evolved over time, to see what I'm going to do tomorrow. So if I did this, then next time I should improve this. Here I don't have weights because I've trained with body weight, but I could also include here the weight, and I could see the progression with weight also. So I hope this is useful, not only if you're doing workouts, but to improve your skills in data validation with the filter function and with some small macros to help us with data input. So thank you so much. You can find this template and the codes in the Patreon page, and please let me know what do you think about this project and how can we improve it, and next steps we could add to it. See you next time.